Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Jay Jeffrey. Jay is the owner and founder of Lumber JAKKSS Millworks. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Hey, Otto, thank you. Appreciate you having us on.
Of course, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you for coming and sharing your story here.
Happy to do it.
Before we go into your personal journey, if you could just give the audience, Jay, so they can be a little bit familiar of what is Lumber JAKKSS Millworks, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So Lumber JAKKSS Millworks is a millwork and company that makes custom furniture, desks, what have you, and we basically dub ourselves as doing custom everything. So anything we touch is a one-on-one with the customer or the owner of a business. So we do quite a bit of residential, and we've delved into the commercial world. So we just installed 60 linear feet of bar top for a brewery yesterday, in fact. So Lumber JAKKSS started because COVID hit everybody hard, and my businesses that I owned previously, which I'll reference later, were in the dumps because of COVID. So I'm not one to sit around and do much, do nothing. So I had to get up and do something, and we have a 24-acre farm. So, more on that story later, but the Lumber JAKKSS portion comes, and the reason it's spelled JAKKSS is that's my initial, my wife, and my 4 kids. So we put the lumber in front of it and went off to the races.
I love the meaning behind the name.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I'll give the names. It's Jay, Ashton, Kiernan, Killian, Sloan, and Shay. As you can tell, pretty Irish, if you will. But we have fun with it, and I'm hoping, and I'll start with this. I'm hoping in 20 years, not expecting, but hoping that one of my kids has an interest in what we're doing now that we've only been doing for about 2.5 years. In 20 years, that they can either take over or be part of the business in some fashion.
Yeah, and that would be nice. How old is your oldest?
My oldest is 6 right now. So we have 4 that are 6 and under. So you can imagine the farm life. It's a little crazy.
You have your hands full there, man.
I have to say, my wife is a saint, and she's got them all day long, and she allows me to go out and create and work with our team to make custom everything. So.
Yeah, I love that. So, Jay, are you originally from the DMV area, or where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I'm actually not. My wife is from Frederick, Maryland, where our shop and family homestead and farm is located. We're just on the north end of Frederick city and county, if you will. So I'm originally born and raised in a little place called Bangor, Maine, and I flew the coop at about 17 years old, went off to college in Massachusetts, actually Rhode Island, then Massachusetts, and then down to Maryland for a business opportunity after college ended. I just packed up my car and drove down here and ended up in Frederick, Maryland. So there's a lot more to that story, but born and raised in Bangor, Maine. I loved it. I still love Maine. In fact, we're going on a family trip for about 10, 12 days in a week here. And taking a camper of all things with 4 kids and my wife to Maine. But it was a great place to grow up. I learned a lot of very, culturally, it's everybody's still genuine up there. Nothing against the DMV. I love the DMV, but people still hold doors for people up there and say hi and look people in the eyes. So I learned a lot growing up in Maine and appreciating others and everything else. It's a little less of a rat race, if you will. But kind of ironically, Otto, is that Bangor, Maine was the lumber capital of the world in the 1800s. So kind of back to my roots. Not that I was doing that when I was a kid up there, but it's kind of ironic that I'm in the lumber furniture business, coming from a place that was the lumber capital of the world at one point.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah, very, very much so. But just to compound on that story, one of my fondest memories as a child is I have a brother that's 17 months younger than I am. So kind of Irish twins, right? And always beating each other up and doing whatever. But my father is a craftsman by hobby. He was a teacher by trade for 43 years, but he always, if he was not in the classroom or on the soccer field, because he was a phenomenal soccer coach and I grew up playing soccer. But if he wasn't in one of those two places, he was in the shop. And my father and uncle have a shop that's together, and they were always making things not for monetary value. It was always gifts and things for Christmas. He was always making all kinds of different stuff, coffee tables and trivets, and he'd find the Woodworkers magazine and he'd find something he'd want to build, and he'd always be puttering. But the story goes that when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe 6, and my brother was right along with me, unbeknownst to us, my father's form of babysitting was to put us on the shop floor with a block of wood, some nails, and a hammer, and it would keep us occupied for hours while he was on the other side of the shop using the table saw and whatever else. But a lot of what I learned was not by my father sitting me down and saying, hey, this is how you do a dovetail, or this is how you do a whatever woodworking technique there is out there. He never did that, which I'm actually happy he didn't, because I learned through osmosis. It was one of those things that I didn't realize I was learning while I was in the shop at that early age, and understanding, how to engineer something from the ground up. So I appreciate he didn't do it, but also understand that I wasn't educated in this field, right? I stumbled upon it and I have a passion for it at this point. And I always say, I wish had done what I'm doing now 10 years ago, but understand I wouldn't have had the resources that I do now to pull this off.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. Is it just you and your brother, or do you have any other siblings?
Actually, it's funny you ask. I have a brother that's 17 months younger than I am, that's now a dentist and still lives in Maine. And I have a brother that's 16 years younger than I am, with the same parents, just really an oopsie, and great kid. His name's Kyle. And he's in his early 20s, and he lives in Maine, and doing well for himself, but trying to figure out his path too,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, what a gap.
Dude, totally. Honestly, I was a junior in high school, right? And I remember vividly, my mother tells this story all the time. My brother Ryan, who's 17 months younger than I am, went in after my mother had the baby Kyle, and asked my mother for money to go to Burger King. She had just given her birth to her third child, and that was our, hey mom, thanks. Oh, cool, Kyle's there. Yeah, can we have some money? So
yeah,
funny.
That is. It's interesting how just through osmosis, you being there, you pick up on things, even though you're young. You were what? How old were you when you were playing with your brother on the shop floor?
I mean, as early as probably 3 or 4, but
Yeah.
Of course, learning and remembering probably 6, 7, 8 years old, when my father was, touring us around on his in the bus with his soccer team. Again, when he wasn't doing the soccer or the teaching, he was in the shop, and we were on the shop floor. So, through my younger years, every weekend we were on the shop floor or doing something at my father's shop.
That is very interesting. You were mentioning growing up in Maine, you were into soccer. So I guess besides soccer, just childhood was just regular childhood up in Maine.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Regular childhood. I mean, I was probably on a bike, tooling around, to use that word again, tooling around Bangor, Maine, going through the woods, going down by the river, all kinds of stuff when I was probably 7 years old, and you don't see that a lot these days, right?
Not anymore.
Even in Maine. Yeah, even in Maine. I mean, social media and the fear factor, and nothing against it. It's just people don't do that stuff anymore. And I appreciate every moment of that, because I spent hours from morning until after dark on my bike playing flashlight tag with people after dark, and having a really, really good childhood.
Yeah. And now it's your kids, the oldest is 6, so you're probably not seeing it a lot right now, but you will soon. It's now the opposite, Jay. You'll see you want to get him out of the house. That's just go play outside and just remove your face from a screen.
Right. Yeah, we're dealing with that a little bit with my my second. I have 3 girls and a boy. The second is the boy, and he loves his tablet. And we're trying to get him out, but we are very fortunate. We actually, where our shop is located, Lumberjack shop, is on our family farm. We have 24 acres, like I referenced earlier, and it's nice because my kids can get out and run. And we literally, it's 91 degrees out today. And the past few days, they've actually been out in their underwear, just running around, playing in the mud, whatever, like kids should be, So we do try to get them out. My wife is very good about limiting the so-called screen time, but sometimes it's hard, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned you live in a farm. Any animals there, or?
Yeah, actually, so previous to about 3 months ago, we only had 2 cats. We were very busy. I was on the road with my other companies, selling and doing all kinds of other stuff, event planning. And now that I'm on the farm, we have more time to, actually keep the farm and do things on the farm. So we have 12 chickens. A dog is in the talks, so we're thinking very soon to have a dog on the property. But yeah, it's 12 chickens and 2 cats, and I call them the 4 rascals, aka the kids.
Okay. Nice. So you said you went to college, and then eventually you said through work, that's what brought you down to the DMV area, right?
Yeah, good question. So I went to college in Rhode Island at Roger Williams University and finished up at Westfield State College in Western Mass, and had a business opportunity while I was in college. I was actually working with high school sports teams to help them raise money in Massachusetts, and more relevant in Connecticut. I was traveling down into Connecticut, raising money for sports teams, and I was underneath another guy who was my mentor at the time. And I just realized there wasn't a lot of growth in the New England area for that business. And I kind of looked at the map and saw where that company that he and I worked for had some open spots. And the pin in the map was Maryland, and Frederick was certainly enticing. I knew a young lady from here, so I moved down here and just started working with high school sports teams to help them raise money in really all of Maryland, or kind of Western Maryland, into Northern Virginia, Arlington, Alexandria, all those areas. So I was on the road a lot in my 20s and spending a lot of time in traffic, but I enjoyed every minute of that. And I still, actually, honestly, I still do that if somebody calls that I've been working with for 15 years. But it's not my focus, that's for sure.
That's an interesting business, Jay. So how does that work? You come in, and these are all public high schools, I assume?
Yeah, correct. I mean,
Okay.
I work with very few private, just because either parents donate money, or the dynamic is they don't want to go out and solicit, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's all public high schools. A lot of my business is in Frederick County, Montgomery County, and Fairfax County, VA. I work with football teams, to cross country teams, to tennis teams and track teams. So what we're most known for is the little cards that the football teams sell that have the discounts on the back of them. I've been doing that for years now. Everything's kind of moved online now, but 15 years ago, and even 10 to 5 years ago, those teams were selling discount cards to their family and friends to support them for $20 or $40, whatever the price point was, to raise money for the teams. I mean, certainly now it's all on online donation platforms, which we have too, but not to get too long-winded on that, but it's an interesting business. And again, I love helping sports teams because I grew up playing sports, and it's a passion of mine. But this passion of woodworking has taken over that other passion at this point.
Of course. So I guess this is the discount card, and with that, you're able to buy things at a discount at different retailers.
Yeah, so what we would do is we put together that card for the high school sports team, or even sometimes in some respects, like Annandale, as well as Quince Orchard in Montgomery County, would do an all athletics card. So we'd build that for them. I'd come in and do the rah-rah speech and get the kids all amped up to go, sell to their family and friends, which is hard these days, right? They don't want to go out and sell anything. But we'd give them prizes and everything else. But we'd put together that card that would have discounts on the back of them to local restaurants and car washes and oil change places. So those people could support the program, and it would have, I referenced Quince Orchard High School, but it had the Quince Orchard logo on it. And then people could flash that card at whatever the location was that was offering that discount for 1 year. And then we do it again the next year. So, I did that for majority of 17 years and fed my family pretty well with that. But that's been, I guess, put on the shelf at this point. So.
Yeah. And then I guess COVID happened, and was that the transition point there for you, Jay?
It was, and I actually, I guess a lot of people, and I don't really dub myself as this, but I get a lot of people that say, "Whoa, you're a serial entrepreneur," and listen, I'm just somebody who likes to try new things, and I was doing that fundraising business, doing well with it. So to step back, before COVID, I also was running an events company, so we put on beer festivals, mud runs called the Mud Dog Run. So I was behind all of that for many years, I did that for about 7 or 8 years total. But you can tell, high school sports and event planning went kablooey when COVID hit. So, I sat around really like a lot of people for 3-4 months, spent time with family, and probably drank too much and did stuff that we shouldn't have been doing, but everybody was just kind of, the question mark was out there. And so COVID happened, and certainly that was March of 2020. By June, I was just absolutely going cabin fever, So I ended up going out one day on my farm, and we had an old dilapidated pool. And this ties into the whole story, Otto, but I'm not trying to get long-winded, but it's kind of cool. We had a dilapidated pool that I had filled in years ago and put my kids' playground set out on it. But there was a pool house that was also dilapidated that I hadn't ripped down, but it very much needed to be, so the kids didn't get any rusty nails in the foot or whatever. So I went out one day and I just started ripping it down. My wife comes out and goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "No, I'm just, just see what, we'll figure it out. I want to flatten it." And she goes, "Why don't you build that pavilion that I've been wanting for many years?" And I said, "That's a great idea." So I started looking into getting kits, just to us. And certainly with zero money coming in, a very, very light trickle, if you will, during COVID, I didn't want to spend $20,000 to $40,000 on a kit to be dropped off at my door, and I'd still put it together. So I ended up starting asking some questions to some friends, and I said, where would I get some lumber to, actually make my own pavilion? And I ended up getting some answers, and I contacted a lumber company that would actually mill, or they would have, I actually went up and ironically, I helped them mill my lumber. I made a huge 20 by 30 pavilion that I erected myself with, and they're 6 by 6 beams, and made the trusses in my driveway, and then hoisted them with a lift and put them on. And then my father came down and helped me put the roof on. And to this day, of course, that was only 2 years ago. It's sitting, and my family's out underneath it right now. And so that actually really started Lumberjacks, unbeknownst to us. That started in June, July of 2020. We were just, hanging out on the farm, built it. And then once I was done with that, or maybe right at the end, I felt like we needed a big live edge table underneath the pavilion. So I went and got a live edge slab and built a table, as well as some benches. And so I think it was probably in the end of July 2020, Otto, I went to my wife, and my wife is an attorney by trade. So she sees things very much black and white when I see them gray. And I went and pitched her on the idea on a Sunday. I remember vividly in the afternoon, I think, or in the evening when the kids were in bed, I said, "Hey, babe, I've done some research. I think I'm going to buy a sawmill. Are you okay with that?" And she goes, "Wait, what are you talking about?" So I gave her the whole rundown on why I was going to buy a sawmill. We were going to be slabbing lumber and doing all this crazy stuff. And I remember this vividly too. On a Tuesday, she said yes. So I ordered a sawmill from New Zealand on a Tuesday in July, and it came in November. So we had a little bit of a gap there where I was making some stuff. So I bought a sawmill with the intention completely, Otto, to slab, it'd be a sawyer, just slab lumber, and have slabs for sale where people could make their own stuff, or try to get into the commercial world where people are buying, hundreds of slabs or whatever. And the sawmill came in, and I slabbed lumber, and I've still actually got some of the stuff that we just built a table out of one of my first cuts, and it morphed. So by December, it's a little colder, so I put the sawmill away, and I just started making some stuff. We had purchased a CNC machine in the interim as well, a used CNC machine off Craigslist, and we just started making cutting boards, cribbage boards. And a friend of mine from high school that I hadn't talked to since high school reached out and said, "Hey, have you thought about cribbage boards?" So I don't know, are you familiar with cribbage?
I'm not.
It's a card game, but you have a board that you move pegs, and it's so you have to have a board.
Okay.
So I made a cribbage board for this girl I knew from high school. She lives in, I think, North Carolina. She said, "Hey, would you make this and personalize it?" And I guess they're big cribbage players. And I said, "Sure." So I did that and posted on Facebook. And then all of a sudden I have 50 orders for cribbage boards.
Wow.
And that was only family, friends, people that supported us. And again, it morphed. We come January 2021, I was making some cutting boards and some cribbage boards and doing some cool stuff. And then all of a sudden we get an order from a friend that I knew that owned a deck and fence company, that somebody had reached out to them to build 30 wedding tables. And they're a deck and fence company, even though they have woodworking in their name or whatever it is. They knew us, or me at that point, and said, "Hey, would you like to take this on?" And so they passed the person to me, and I said, "Sure, let's see what we can do." So we made 30 X-brace farmhouse style tables for a wedding facility on Kent Island. And Otto, if I say it hasn't been drinking from an 8-inch fire hose since then, I'd be lying.
So you never imagined in your wildest dream this much demand in such a short period of time.
No, and certainly, like I said, I wouldn't have the resources 10 years ago to pull off what we're doing now, because I'm in a Rotary Club in Frederick that certainly a lot of people in that Rotary Club supported us and had us build stuff for their homes or whatever. But yeah, I had no clue. I honestly thought we were going to start a company and we'll see where it goes. And my backup plan is to go back to, when things get back to normal, my other two businesses that really right now I'm getting calls daily to do fundraising and potentially put on events. And I just have to say, that's not my focus right now.
How does this compare to the other two businesses you had before?
Great question. I say this, I've actually used this a couple times with people because they ask that. They say, and I always say I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having a heck of a good time. I'm on my farm a lot more. I mean, certainly with this much growth this quickly, I'm moving into a business development role. I'm really not fabricating as much because honestly, and not to be arrogant, but there's not a lot of people that can tell our story like I can. Mm-hmm. So I've hired a head craftsman and some helpers that are, able to fabricate what I talk to the customer with. But the difference between what we do now with Lumber JAKKSS and the other businesses I had previously and still have, the fundraising business was great. I felt great about personally, as well as the coach felt good about raising a lot of money. But they would raise anywhere between $2,000 and $40,000. Some teams raised 40 grand with us. And it was awesome. But as soon as I either hand that check over or count the money and we part our ways, we say, "Hey, we'll do it next year." So they were on their season, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the appreciation factor was very small.
Sure.
Same thing with events. People come and have a great time, drink a ton of beer and a bunch of bacon at our beer bacon music festival, listen to some music, but the next weekend they're doing something else. And again, nothing wrong with that, but the appreciation factor is very small. And they'll do it again if they decide to do it. So now appreciation factor, and it makes me feel good, but I really love that we have a good friend that we just built a 12-foot by 5-foot walnut table with a metal base for their dining room. And she came to me and said, "Listen, I need something that is a wow factor, but I want to pass it down through the generations. And that means the world to me because, grow something bigger than yourself. And now I know, and I'm big on branding. Our Lumber JAKKSS logo is on everything we do. We don't white label anything. If somebody comes and says, I want you to build whatever, and they're a designer, and they don't want our logo somewhere on it, that's not the business I want to be in, because I want, and this is an ego thing, Otto, but I would really like, whether my kids are involved in the business or not, but in this DMV area, I would love for my kids to go to a dinner party in 40 years. And they look at the table and they're like, geez, that looks familiar. And they look up underneath and it's got the Lumber JAKKSS logo, and their initial is one of the initials on the table or whatever the cabinet we built. So, somebody today asked me, and so that the appreciation factor is big, but somebody asked me today, so what do you do? Cabinets or tables or what? And I said, in the last 30 days, we've done a 7-foot circular table with a 4-foot Lazy Susan on the interior. We've done a bourbon cabinet that's completely different with hidden compartments. We did 60 linear feet of bar top for a brewery. And in the pipeline, we've got a bunch of other stuff that are completely different. And that's unique for a millwork shop. And we dub ourselves a millwork shop. We're really not a millwork shop, because if you're a craftsman, if you will, and I was naive to this, millwork is really, the crown molding, the base molding, some cabinetry stuff. We're, like I said at the beginning, we're custom everything. So, if somebody comes to us with, we're doing a vanity right now, a white oak vanity that needs to fit in a very narrow space of a bathroom, we say yes, because if it's unique, can tell a story, and it's completely custom from the ground up, and they're willing to give us at least a little bit of creative discretion, that's all us.
It's smart. I don't even think it's a vanity as far as basically you stamping your logo on every piece that you produce. That's the way to go.
It really is. We're having a lot of fun doing it, and I love our logo. We actually hired somebody to design our website, design our logo. It's actually a friend of ours that was in Rotary. I referenced Rotary earlier, and her team did a phenomenal job. We went through a bunch of iterations, but back at that point, we were intending to just, like I said, slab stuff out, and that's why there's actually, if you look at our logo, there's a PV in it, that the old log roller, and it's very the lettering's wavy, but has points for the logs and everything, and it has a log around the JAKKSS portion of the logo. I don't know how we've been so lucky, Otto, but we have to fall into the I guess not even fall into, just the metamorphosis and following the path and not knowing what's around the corner. I'm very happy to say that I keep asking myself, well, what's next? What's next? What's the project next? And we just 2 days ago were asked by a multinational company to make a 20-foot conference room table, 20 foot by 5 foot wide conference room table that incorporates railroad rail, as well as barnwood that's on this property in Frederick that they're moving their operation to. Like, if you asked me if we were going to be doing that 18 months ago, I would have been like, no, we're making charcuterie boards. So I don't know what's next. Whatever somebody brings us and wants to have fun with.
I'm curious, because it's all across the board as far as what you're making there. This company is a multinational company you just mentioned. How do they find you? How are most people finding you?
So some of it's social media. Actually, a lot of it's social media or Google search. Actually, we're probably, let me retract that. The social media is coming through my own personal page. So family, friends, and friends of friends are finding us via social media. We haven't had to do a huge push with social media. We've done a little bit, but we haven't had to spend a lot of money there. We spend more money with like Google ads, where people, if somebody goes to get a custom piece, So difference for Instagram or Facebook, people are scrolling through and they're like, oh, that's cool. That's a bourbon cabinet. That's freaking awesome. But they're not going to buy like right there immediately, especially because of the price point. If they reached out, they'd probably be shocked at what the bourbon cabinet costs. Right. But it's for that person. They want a bourbon cabinet for their dining room, and it's custom to them, and they'll pay not whatever, but close to whatever they want. Right. So a lot of people find us, they type in craftsman near me or millwork near me or, whatever those keywords are that my marketing team does a really good job with, because I'm not behind the curtain on that. They are. So it's Google, it's word of mouth. That multinational company actually found us because they hired a furniture company, or like a office furniture company, to outfit all of their data centers, as well as their boardroom with their chairs and everything else. But that person that they were talking to, that's part of that multinational company, said, but we need a statement piece. And of course, an office furniture company is going to have standard, whatever by whatever. They don't have custom stuff. So that, ironically, you found us via the Frederick Lifestyle magazine. That's how you told me you came upon us. That office furniture company read the same article and said, "Oh, we got to reach out to these guys and see if we can do a partnership." And brought us into that multinational. And the nice thing about that, and I referenced like a designer reaching out wants to white label something. I was so pleased that this office furniture company was like, "Listen, you're the lead on this. Like, we're the lead, but you're the brand, and you're what we want. We want you talking to the customer." Sure. And they were very upfront with that, that's what, again, not to go egotistical on this, but Otto, that's what I'm good at. I'm good at talking to people, finding out what their need is, and then either saying, "Yep, I got it. Are you cool with us just going? Or do you need a design sketch or whatever?" So I do the back and forth, and then I go to my head craftsman, Matt, who is, unlike me, educated in this field. He went to IUP for furniture design and fabrication. So the cool thing about the yin and yang there is there's a lot of times I'll go in and I'll just start dicing things up, and I'll be like, "Hey, we're doing this. This is what I'm thinking." He's like, "I don't know if we can do that." So then I'll show him what I'm thinking. He's like, "I would have never thought of it that way." On the flip side, I'll give him some crazy idea, and he's an overanalyzer when I'm just a winger. It's nice because he will make sure every tool is in the truck for an install. He'll make sure a joint is not going to break, and he inspects every slab or every piece of lumber we do that we glue up, to make sure there's not cracks in it, because he's looking at 2 years down the road or the next season when that wood, and I'm getting geeky here, Otto, but when that wood expands in the summer and contracts in the winter. And we are all about solid wood fabrication, which I didn't reference in the beginning, which is different than a lot of either cabinet shops and nothing wrong with it, but we're not using a lot of plywood. We're not trying to front face and veneer things. We are using completely solid wood fabrication. So that's the nice thing about having somebody like Matt. He understands what the wood is going to do when I'm not educated in that. So I have a right-hand guy that just is phenomenal.
That's great. So everything's custom made, basically, right?
Everything. And again, going back to the infancy, I didn't realize we were going to do everything custom. I had envisioned, and I went to my marketing team to build our website, and I envisioned us slabbing stuff as well as making a standard portfolio of tables and desks and some things that you could go on and click what top you want, what finish, and what metal base or wooden legs you want. That's what I thought. It was kind of a little bit more upscale IKEA. That's the only reference I can give right now, that you kind of piece it together. And that was just not, we found out very quickly that was not, and granted, I could have went that direction, but the things that were coming to us, the questions we were getting, we couldn't offer 5 options. It just wouldn't work. as well as to tell the story. It's just, again, morphed, and everything from the ground up. From I go up to our mill and pick out the lumber myself to make sure that we are, from a quality control standpoint, we are getting the type of lumber that customer is going to want. And then I bring it back and my guys produce. And then I, on the back end, will finish the piece with our oil rubbed finish to make sure I'm seeing the product going out the door as it's being finished to the customer, and we can present it to that customer. So I'm doing a lot of touches with the customer, but the nice thing is I've turned the fabrication and production over to Matt, my head craftsman, and again, he's doing a phenomenal job.
Will we see any of your pieces on Etsy, or is not really an Etsy thing?
It's not. I get that question actually recently a lot more, Otto. I appreciate you asking it. Again, nothing against Etsy. It's a great place for people. Mm-hmm. The problem with Etsy is one, a lot of Etsy stuff is, and I don't want to say we don't do one-offs. We do a lot of one-offs, but it's a cutting board that somebody says, hey, I want laser engraving on it. So they already have some standard cutting boards and they put laser engraving on it. And that's a great business. It's a high profitable business, but you got to sell, 2,000 a year to make any, or whatever the number is. I haven't delved into Etsy. It might be down in the future, but we haven't needed to, Otto. And again, not to be beat my chest, or we have fallen into a great market where people are willing to, spend a lot of money with us. And really money is not the object, right? If they lead with, hey, can you make me a desk, but I need it cheap, you're coming to the wrong people. Mm-hmm. We're going to spend a lot of time on detail. So when somebody leads with, I want, again, 20 foot by 5 foot conference room table with rails in the legs and all this stuff, you're talking my game. Yeah. Because those people, money's not really the object there. They want their board of people that are on their company board to be sitting around a statement piece that speaks volumes about the property and the history of that property in that building.
I mean, it's a rare piece. I mean, you're basically, Jay, almost an artist. It's art that you're creating, and it's just one of one. And obviously there's a price for that as well.
There is, and I'm glad you said that. So we do a lot of one-of-ones, but we've also, like I referenced the brewery we just did yesterday with the bar top. So that is a one-of-one, but we're also going to end up doing some drink ledges and some tables at some point for them. But we just built 100 tables, the identical tables, as a second order for the wedding facility that we did 30 tables for the previous year. So it's funny because we can do 100 was a lot. It was actually 60 at a time, or the first time. And that's a lot of repetition. And as much as we like that from a cash influx, I don't want to do a ton of that. Sure. But we're a hybrid. Not only are we doing custom everything, we can do one-offs, but we can also do production work that is custom. So we're finding ourselves in a very unique portion of the woodworking world, because if you're a production shop, you're doing a lot of stuff on, massive CNCs and cut parts and you put them together. We have the ability to do that. But we also have the ability to make a one-off vanity or one-off circular table or whatever. So anyways.
Jay, if I can just briefly take you back to 2 years ago when you were having that conversation with your wife about buying this equipment from New Zealand and being shipped to you a couple months back. I don't know the cost. I'm sure it was a pretty good size investment. And I think you mentioned you bought another equipment as well. What was your thought there? Were you scared? Were you just sure? Or that's an investment. You're starting a new business now, and you obviously need to supply. You need to purchase equipment for it.
Yeah, certainly. And I didn't know where that would go or how much we'd be spending. But after that first sawmill, which was like you just said, a large investment, we bought the CNC, we bought a planer. Now, granted, I'm a guy that likes to buy things used. Even my cars are 20 years old. My F-350 is 22 years old. I find I have a unique ability to find the right things at the right time and not spend a crap load of money on them. Now, granted, our sawmill was brand new, shipped from New Zealand, but everything else, we've done a pretty good job of finding used equipment that fits our need. Mm-hmm. We just purchased, actually, it came in about a month ago, a brand new CNC machine. So that one is new too. But yeah, the tooling up, if you will, has been immense. We have a new shop we're moving into that we built last year. We're waiting for approval by Frederick County and everything else, but we're moving from a 4-bay garage to a 3,200 square foot building that, honestly, Otto, once we move into it, it's going to be too small.
Wow, already.
Yeah, and we're not even in it yet. And granted, we'll use it, we'll maximize it, but sure, we're probably going to need to go bigger, and whether that's on the farm to tell the story of the Lumberjacks or the Jacks clan, if you will, for my family, or we have to prototype here and tell that story and then have a production facility somewhere else. That's all on the table right now, and it's moving fast. It's coming at warp speed to us. Like I said earlier, drinking from an 8-inch fire hose is hard to do, but we're trying to do our best to make it all happen and provide some long-lasting storytelling pieces for people in the DMV and hopefully further.
Yeah. Is that 3,200 square foot facility in your farm, or is that located elsewhere?
Yeah, we built a barn, if you will.
Okay.
A pole barn that's just waiting for approval and ironically, that was a huge risk too. I mean, lumber prices were going up, and I locked it in before lumber raised in January of 2021. And so I locked all that in and just had a company come in and build it. And I guess, is it Kevin Costner? I think it's Costner that's in the Field of Dreams. Kind of like the build it and they will come. And it's literally in our front field that I call our front field. It's a 12-acre lot that a farmer that we have farms it. And it was all hay, and it grown for hay for the last 10 years since we've been on this property. And we built a huge barn. And like I said, it's already too small, and we're gonna have to grow from there.
Yeah, you're gonna have to expand and make it larger then.
Yeah, that's another option too. Just keep going with a 40 foot wide by who knows how long. It could be as long as a football field when we talking about 3 years. Who knows? Yeah.
Jay, what would you say drives and motivates you?
Certainly at this point, it's much different than it was when I was in my younger years. I'll be honest, I'm 39 years old, and younger years, it was money, right? And you certainly wanted to grow and do better than, not in a bad way, in a good way, better than my parents. My parents provided a great childhood for me, but my father's a teacher, my mother's a nurse, so they weren't, rolling in it, but we never went without, from what I remember. But now it's providing for my family, and hopefully, like I referenced earlier, is building something bigger than myself. My other two companies, it was really whatever I was able to go out and sell or do or put on for a festival. Now it's providing for my family and growing something that, again, if they have an interest, take it over, great. If they don't, meaning my 4 kids, maybe it's passed on to somebody else or purchased or whatever. I don't know what that looks like, but the drive right now is creating really cool stuff. We're making a lot of stuff right now with hidden compartments that I think people are into right now, and thinking they can hide their bourbon or hide their guns or hide their whatever. Yeah. We're having a lot of fun with it. So it really drives me to be able to walk across my driveway right now to a 4-bay garage that, like I referenced earlier, my head craftsman Matt, that can execute really, really awesome stuff. And not to say it's all hunky dory. I mean, I was in there today, kind of giving it to the guys that were making a vanity in a little bit different way than I had envisioned in my head. And where was the communication lost? Was it me? Was it how things are? Did you guys feel like you could only fabricate that way? We still trials and tribulations and struggles and growth and everything else, like every small business. It seems great from the outside looking in. Don't get me wrong, it's great. It's awesome. But the drive for me is being able to provide awesome custom pieces for people to be able to tell their story, whether they got it from a local craftsman or we ended up milling the tree that they got married under, because that's one of the projects on the docket. We have a log that somebody wants milled and made into a table and a coffee table that they got married under because it got struck by lightning after they got married, and they were able to procure the log. So, whether it's that personal story or that bourbon cabinet that wife wants all the bourbon out of her kitchen cabinets and they want to put it in an actual bourbon cabinet, that's what drives me. I love having those conversations and creating something completely different that nobody else is doing.
That's great. Are there any specific habits or traits you feel that have helped you, whether day to day on the business or personal side of things?
Great questions. So certainly I knew I didn't want to build a company that was completely predicated on me, even though my branding and everything else is wrapped around my family. I wanted to make sure we were building something from the ground up that I didn't necessarily have to be in the shop every day, which I'm not anymore. I'm literally, Otto, in the shop probably 5-10% of the time. My guys are really good and they do some fantastic work. And I come in, and when I come in, I shake things up, right? I end up asking the hard questions and why we do that. But some of the things that traits that helped is owning businesses prior to, knowing what some of the pitfalls are, even though it was completely different business. I feel like something I didn't reference is I went to Roger Williams University in Rhode Island originally for architecture. So I was supposed to be an architect. I knew through and through when I was a junior and senior in high school doing the architecture programs at my high school, that was what I was going to do. So my brain works a little bit like an architect, a designer, an engineer. I'm kind of a hybrid because I had the childhood of my father, like I said earlier, learning through osmosis, understanding how things work. And I guess the way my mind, and I don't know if other people have this trait. I've never really asked anybody, but I can see something. So one of the things with a customer that I ask for is inspirational photos. So as soon as somebody sends me an inspirational photo and either they want us to replicate that or put our own spin on it, I can see a photo and break the whole thing apart in my mind into the pieces. So that is a trait that I think I bring to the table when I'm meeting with a customer, but then bring it back to my production guys and say, hey, I've already blown this up in my head. I already know all the pieces. Here's what I think we should do. What do you think? So as opposed to, to compound on that, I also when I go to meet with the customer, I'm our, on-site measurement guy. So I measure everything. I keep all those measurements in my head. I can come back and rattle them off, and 2 weeks later, somebody will ask me the measurements and they'll have to go look in a book. And Matt has to write everything down. A couple of the other guys, they have to write everything down, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I have a weird way of visualizing where I was, seeing the tape measure, and being able to bring that back to the shop. And I do write things down now because have so much on our plate. But there are times I'll just, we were at the bar yesterday and they want to add a drink ledge when we were on the install. And I went and measured, and I still can rattle off the 22'6" by 9 inches by 3/4 inch and know right where it's going to go. So you asked the question. It's weird how my brain works. Now, granted, if you met me and saw, how I work, I probably look like I'm, a haphazard lumberjack, just like winging everything. But, what's going on between the ears is a little more methodical. And I try to keep everything organized, but my wife is much better at keeping things organized than I am.
What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today at Lumberjacks?
Great question. So the challenge is certainly the growth and the capacity. We're not really having capacity issues, because the nice thing is, in the market we're playing in, unless it's, I referenced that brewery, they have a deadline that they're going to be opening. Most of our residential clients, I mean, I tell them we got a lot on the docket. It could be 6 weeks, but more likely 3 or 4 months before you're going to get your piece. And if I have that conversation up front, there's not really any expectation of time. I try to give a little bit, but I let them know we might run into some issues, or I might come back to you and say, this is a great reference. We made a desk for somebody in Great Falls, Virginia. And in the middle of the build, we had the desk flipped upside down with 3 drawers, and there was a lot of dead space. So I texted the customer and I said, hey, she was buying this for her fiance. And I said, hey, would your fiance like a hidden compartment? And she goes, oh my God, are you serious? He wanted to be the president when he was younger, and he loves the Resolute desk. And I said, great. Can we make a hidden compartment that pops down? And what could we put in that? She goes, he loves Basil Hayden bourbon. And I said, perfect. And I guess the theme here is bourbon cabinets, bourbon hidden compartments and everything. But that's what gave us the idea for the bourbon cabinet we just built that has the hidden compartment, was the desk. So my case in point is, I'm talking to the customer while we're building this, and we change something. So that's going to add time, add labor, add ordering mechanisms to achieve that pop down hidden compartment. So anyways, that's we have a lot of fun, and the lead time is kind of arbitrary at this point, but it is a capacity issue. We're growing so fast that I need to bring some more people on, good people. And I'll tell you my goals right now. My goal at this point is to put a number on it. I want to be a $5 million company in a few years, with 5 craftsmen that are highly capable, and they don't have to come in as craftsmen. I want to have 5 quality human beings that are willing to learn, and they can learn from Matt. He's educated in it, and I can come and show them some unorthodox ways of doing things. But my goal is to be, a shop of a small shop that's doing big things with some really cool revenue stream.
The way things are running right now and tracking, Jay, do you see yourself there in a couple of years? You mentioned hitting the 5 million.
I would love to. That changes. I mean, I threw that $5 million number out to my business coach and business consultant. I have one of those just because, we become good friends and everything else. And he's like, yeah, you can hit that. Now, granted, can we do that out of our own shop? And do we have to, partner with other shops and however that looks? Sure. I think that it is an attainable goal. It's going to be a lofty goal. But we are on that trajectory to get there. We've made some great relationships. I think more than anything, it's the who before the what. So I need to find the who's. Mm-hmm. I need to find the guys and the gals that can produce at a high level and want to have fun. We've got a guy, and I tell you, not to go on a long story on this, but we have a guy he works for the government, and he's got 5 kids, and he showed up at our place to buy something from us. So we built something for his side hustle business, if you will. Mm-hmm. And he was like, man, wait, you do what here? And you got 4 kids, and you got this farmland, and how are you doing this? So he's asking all these questions, and he's like, I'm willing to learn. He's like, I want out of the government. And those are the types of guys that I really would. I don't know if I'm going to hire them, because I don't know if I have the ability to either match or fit his lifestyle. But we want people that want to change their lifestyle, work for, and I'm going to dub my wife is a much better person than I am. And she's actually the owner of the company, if you will, for tax purposes, if you will. But I have to say, want to work for good people that are trying to raise their kids right, and heck, we're on a farm right on Route 15 going towards from Frederick to Gettysburg. So it's a little hustle bustle, but you step onto the farm, it doesn't feel like the birds are chirping in the morning. When I hired Matt, my head craftsman, the first day on the job, he was commuting down to 270, down 270 to Rockville, Bethesda every day before that. And he walked in, I said, welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. And 2 days later, he said he walked in and the birds were chirping and everything. It's just a different lifestyle. Nothing wrong with everything else. It's
Sure.
just, we have created unbeknownst to us something great and unintentional, right? Really, that's the word, unintentional. But we try to do the right things and do right by people. So that's going back to the who. I really need to find the 5 craftsmen that are really going to want to be here for a long time and create some really cool stuff.
How many do you have now?
So we have Matt, and I've got a helper, and we have an intern. So we and my father comes down from Maine and spends time with the grandkids and meanders out to the shop and ends up helping. Which nothing wrong with that, but he creates his own schedule, if you will.
Sure.
So every 5-6 weeks, we find my dad staying on the farm for 4 or 5 weeks, and then he goes back and sees my mom, and because my mom's still working, but my father's retired. So, anyways, not to go long-winded on that, but yeah, we're having a lot of fun. Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk we would be where we are, especially with going from doing really well to not even zero. We went negative for my family income when COVID hit, because I was right in the middle of a sports season when that hit in March, and it was just balloon got deflated. But now the balloon is full, and we're having a good time.
Jay, speaking of your dad, and obviously he was the first one to expose you to this world, let's call it. When he comes down here, how does he feel? I'm sure he would have never thought his son would be in this business, this line of work.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. So I don't know how he feels. He and I have an interesting relationship. I love to ride him in the shop because he's 70 years old, and I'm a type A. I like to be not in people's faces, but it's a little different with my father. I think he's very proud. He has said that on the phone, so he is proud. I think he loves seeing that I have a passion for something that he developed a passion for, I believe, when he was in college. His father was not a craftsman. My grandfather worked for the Boy Scouts of America for 50 years, 50, which is a big feat. Yes. And my grandfather was very good with his hands, but wasn't a craftsman, if you will. So my father taught himself. Same thing like me. I've kind of taught myself. I've dabbled in woodworking for many years through my 20s. And I find myself, I like to put a lot of other things together, metal and plastics and everything, before I, open a millwork shop. But, I think he's proud of me. I call him Pops. And I think my mom and is proud, seeing that I went from being a sales guy to, really the sales guy, the accountant, the everything, doing my other businesses. And now I'm building something that I can focus on business development and creating what we're creating now. But yeah, dad has fun when he comes down. I think he gets a little stressed out because I ride him a little bit more than I probably should. And I know internally I tell myself I probably shouldn't ride him as much, but anyways, you asked. So I think he has fun when he comes down for about a week. And then he, more than anything, he comes down to see the grandkids.
Okay, that's good. Well, coming to an end here now, when you're not busy with the business, of course, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
I don't have a lot of free time now. I love to work out. I find myself, during COVID, I think a lot of people, I put some LBs on, the COVID LBs, but now I'm back at it. I try to get out before the kids get up. They have a schedule. My wife's great about the schedule, so I get out and work out in the morning. I still do, but I love to bike ride. And honestly, from a family standpoint, my wife and I, we have a winery distillery and brewery all in one, about a mile and a half from our house. So we find ourselves, we become friends with the owners, and we're up there every Saturday with the kids. It's a family friendly atmosphere. We take over their gazebo on Saturday afternoons around 3 o'clock till 6 o'clock. And we just like to drink craft beer and spend some time with the kids and run up and down the hill, look over a lavender field, and really look over the skyline of looking east towards Baltimore and really Carroll County. It's beautiful, and it's not far from our house. So, we spend a lot of time with our kids.
That's beautiful. If people want to learn more about you and Lumberjacks, where can they go to?
Oh, great question. So it's lumberjakks.com. That's lumber, JAKKSS.com, or at Lumberjacks on Facebook and Instagram. And certainly our website has all that information on it, but that's the easiest way to contact. And we have a contact form on the website that they can, tell us what their desire for their next custom piece is.
Jay, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Otto, thank you so much. I appreciate you having us on, and I love what you're doing. So thank you very much for showcasing small businesses in the DMV.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.